Welcome to our next session, Coping with Loss During Pregnancy with Bereavement Midwife Ali Brett. We have many families that come through to us at this stage, and we hope you find this session quite comforting and get a lot of knowledge out of what Ali will have to say. Enjoy.
Hello everyone, I'm Ali Brett and I've come along today to talk to you about what happens when a baby dies in pregnancy. I'm the bereavement midwife at Ipswich Hospital and I've been the bereavement midwife now for 5 years. The grieving process begins when the devastating news is broken to the couple that their baby has died or has a life-limiting condition and may die in pregnancy or shortly after birth. Couples never forget this moment, which will change their lives forever. It's vital that excellent communication from this point is upheld, as this can make a tragic situation more bearable, as poor communication is reported as a recurrent theme in complaints and can really affect the reputation of the hospital trust, but more importantly, the actual experience of the family. It's my role as the bereavement midwife to make sure that when we have a family that we're caring for, that they have the best possible care. So in 2017, I was on the first wave of the National Bereavement Care Pathway, and this is where we are flying the flag to put parents at the centre of their care, whatever their situation. And so it's my job as the bereavement midwife, the bereavement lead for our trust, to ensure that the 9 standards of care are upheld for each family every single time that we care for those families. And that includes bereavement care training for my colleagues, being a stepping stone for emotional and mental health support for the perinatal mental health team or future counselling services, to make sure that the bereavement rooms are there, they're well resourced, and that they're available for our families at all times, that they are clean and that they are serving the families well and that they're really comfortable. To make sure that the families have informed choices, that they are at the centre of their care plan, and to make sure that all of the staff around the multidisciplinary team are available for them so that we can talk about the right care for them. To make sure that they are that we have resources and training for memory making when the baby sadly is born and possibly and has died, that we have the resources there, and that the staff are trained and helped, really confident in helping the families make memories. It's a very short time, for a few days tops, that they will be spending time with their baby. And so we need to make sure that they make really good memories. We've got lovely cameras, we've got printers so that we can print out photographs. We use the 4 Lois memory boxes. We also do extra plaster of Paris hand and footprints, and we have lots of lovely soft toys and brilliant women who donate lots of knitting and clothes and things like that. And we really do encourage our families to spend time with their babies, because this is going to help them recover in the weeks and months to come. I also make sure that there's a system to signal that there's been a bereavement. So we have the stickers on the notes so that when a member of staff picks up the notes, that they know that there's either a palliative pregnancy or a loss that's already happened. But also we have the maternity bereavement notification, and the midwife that's caring for the family will fill this in on the computer system, and that will shoot off to all relevant people, and it will cancel future appointments, and it will also alert the health visitors. We also have to make sure that we have support and resources for the healthcare staff. So if they've been involved in an incident, if it's been a very traumatic time for all, that the staff have somewhere to go for debrief. And so I'm also trained in after action reviews. But this is really important for the family as well, because I'm also part of the PMRT, which is the after action audit tool that we use nationally, and I am their advocate and their voice with their questions to make sure that they have answers around their care. So the 9 standards of bereavement care are really, really a brilliant baseline for my role as a bereavement midwife, but also a reassurance to the families that we have a real system in place. When someone is pregnant, they'll have their screening, and they may be diagnosed by the fetal medicine team if there is worrying concerns. They may also have an amniocentesis or CVS in our unit, but also be referred out to the tertiary centre for confirmation of a second opinion. We give them antenatal results and choices information, and also offer a medical termination. It's offered, but obviously, as I was talking about offering all the choices so that the families have what's right for them. If they decline a termination, we refer to the East Anglian Children's Hospice in our local area, and we have regular multidisciplinary team meetings to discuss their plans of care. We refer to Petals Counselling as well, and that's for couples who have had a bereavement or perinatal trauma, or are going through a very tough pregnancy together. And we make sure that we have individual care plans, and we talk about the mode of birth, and we discuss and plan this in detail. And that could be that possibly the lady has only ever had a cesarean section, and that she might be requesting a cesarean section in the future. And we can discuss all of that around to make sure that they get their choices. We also talk about resuscitation and comfort care and what that looks like, and that can change. And we can have many discussions about that, and we involve the paediatricians, and we talk about that a lot during our meetings together. I then write a clinical alert and update it regularly, and that goes in the patient notes and then the handheld notes, so that everyone knows where we're at and what the plans are for that care plan. And then we write an individual postnatal care plan as well, and to make sure that everything is all present and correct. So if the families have chosen a termination of pregnancy for abnormalities, this is a really tough decision to be made. It's not made lightly, and it's a really sensitive time. Couples are offered the CVS and the amniocentesis for confirmation, and then they're offered medical management on the ward, either under 20 weeks in the gynae ward or over 20 weeks on the labour ward. Post-mortem investigations are offered, and a teardrop follow-up appointment also is given, and that's usually about 3 months later. They come back to the hospital, or we do it on Teams now post-COVID, and that's with me and the consultant. And we talk about events in pregnancy and what happened during the management, and then also a plan for the future, and also the results of any investigations, and possibly a referral on to genetics. If the decision for termination is made after 21 plus 6 weeks gestation, then feticide is offered to parents. And this again is a really difficult thing for them to go through, and must never be underestimated. And this is conducted in the Tertiary Fetal Medicine Centre in Addenbrooke's Hospital, and then they return back to the local hospital for medical management. If the baby is over 22 weeks and has not had feticide, then the parents are counselled about the possibility of the baby showing signs of life after birth for a short time. And that does happen. And if that is so, then we provide comfort care, and the baby is then registered as a neonatal death. And as I must reiterate, it's not an easy option for families, and counselling support is always offered. So a part of the multidisciplinary team, obviously we've got the parents at the centre, we have the fetal medicine consultant, we have the neonatal consultant, we have the screening midwife, the community midwife, the bereavement midwife, we have the East Anglian Children's Hospice nurse, and also the perinatal mental health midwife if needed. So we're a lovely team. We would all get together usually in our butterfly room in the antenatal clinic, and we would talk about how the pregnancy is going, what the thoughts are of the family, and where we're at. So we'd have an individualised care plan and thoughts and ideas from the parents, the amount of appointments and scans that they would prefer to have, and where and who will provide care in either the tertiary unit or the local unit. Now, some families, they're going to go off, possibly going to go off to the tertiary unit for a second opinion or also feticide, and they might choose to just continue their care there, which mean for reasons of their own, but also to keep the local hospital their local hospital. So for the future, they might want to come back and give birth there and not have any memories of what's been happening with this palliative pregnancy or bereaved pregnancy. So we're listening to them all the time. People do their own thing and really accommodate what we can. So the mode of birth is really important. I touched on it earlier. So whether they would like an induction of labour and a vaginal birth, whether they want to go into spontaneous labour, that's fine, and what the gestations around that might be. So we might say, if you don't have a spontaneous labour by term +8, then we will induce. We'll offer you an induction. We were talking about that so that they are fully informed and fully in control. They might want an elective cesarean section, and we can sort that out as well. So for postnatal care, they would be offered our quiet room on the labour ward, and also the hospice have amazing resources. So what we've done in the past is we've had the delivery and a bit of short postnatal care in the hospital, and then a transfer to the hospice for some palliative care, and use their resources. And then funeral choices, which is really important, and it's very sensitive, but we would be introducing the bereavement officer and the chaplains at this point. Grief and loss. Grief is unique. We all experience loss at some point in our lives. It's hard to witness and be around, and self-awareness is vital. Bereavement is not a problem to be solved, but a process to be supported. When your husband dies, you become a widow. When your wife dies, a widower. Children who lose their parents are called orphans, but we have no name for the parent who loses a child. There are many stages of grief. This was adapted by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross from the 1980s, and it's this beautiful visual image of what grief looks like, and it looks very orderly, and it's true. There's loss and hurt and shock and numbness and denial, emotional outbursts and anger and fear, all the way through to hope and new relationships and new patterns. That looks like an amazing process that we can just travel through and do 2 weeks at a time. But actually, in reality, this is what grief looks like. This is what families are going through when they've lost their baby. This is what if I make a bereavement phone call, this is what might be at the end of the phone. This is what it looks like when they come into the hospital and know that their baby might not make it. And so to be so loving and kind and be aware as the bereavement midwife, I'm able to really compassionately care for our families and also help them understand what grief looks like, that it can be all of these things in one day, but that these stages of grief are real, and they are something that they will go through. It's really tough, it's really rubbish and awful, but they are that this is normal in grieving and bereavement. Lots of people feel that they're going mad, that they might need, some extra support, that they don't understand what's happening to them. So to be able to talk through the stages of grief, but also understand that it's very messy, is really, really important. When I'm talking to my families and caring for them and doing the weekly phone calls that I do, I always talk about the 5 love languages by Gary Chapman. And this is about how you functioning as a family when you are under massive pressure after the loss of a baby. And what they can be doing is practicing these 5 love languages. So in no particular order, they can be spent thinking about quality time together, buying small gifts for each other, touching and having a hug, being kind with words and saying that they love each other, saying that, calling each other by a nickname, and also doing little jobs for each other, filling the car up or putting the bins out, making the bed. Because when we're under stress and pressure, when we are grieving, and we're grieving in all different ways individually, these things just disappear. So we don't spend quality time together. We don't buy gifts for each other. It doesn't feel appropriate. Sometimes our hugs and cuddles and touching just doesn't happen. We feel withdrawn. And words of affirmation disappear too. We are more polite usually to our neighbours and friends down the road than we are to the people that we love the most. And doing acts of service. So by doing little jobs for each other, it just highlights that we do really love each other. Growing Around Grief by Dr. Lois Tonkin. So this is a really great visual image. So what the general public believe that is grief. Okay, so before loss, our life is full. After loss, our life is very dark and full of grief. But eventually, grief will shrink and our life will continue. Now, in reality, this is what she found. This is our life, it's full. This is our grief, our life is full of grief and darkness. But eventually, our life fills and grows around the grief. Can you see the difference? The pain doesn't go away, the pain remains, but we move forward and our life continues with new things. So this is one of my favorite sayings. Thank you, Theodore Roosevelt, for this. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And I always include this in my education for my colleagues, for the doctors who are doing with who will be breaking bad news. No one cares how much you've read or what your qualifications are, unless they know that you actually care about them. So your body language and the words that you use are so much more important than how many qualifications you've got. So as the bereavement midwife, I am available and accessible, and I have a little business card, and I'm also part of the baby bereavement support group, and that covers early pregnancy loss as well and pregnancy after loss. And so we have our little pin badge and we're continuously fundraising, and we have our leaflet of support. But as the bereavement midwife, it's really helpful because that helps families know that I am available and I am accessible. It's got all my contact details on there so that they can get a hold of me. I don't want anyone to ever feel that they haven't had any support. So when I do my weekly calls, I tend to do weekly calls up to 3 months when we have the feedback, and then we take a view and we see how much support is needed going forward and if any counselling is already underway. So on those weekly phone calls, I need to do a little checklist, and I need to find out whether the family are sleeping well, whether they've got good appetite, whether they are remaining hydrated, having any exercise every day, who is supporting them, who are they talking to, what are their family networks like, and what plans they are making, what distractions, what things that they're looking forward to, and what their interests are. So I have this little checklist, and even just talking about sleep, I can really find out a lot about how a person is functioning. So this is all about mental health. This is all about coping with grief and bereavement. and it's just a really great checklist to be able to help and support and identify any issues that I can then help with. So this is the Tree of Remembrance in Holywells Park. We fundraised 5 years ago, and here it is. It's made of recycled metal, and each leaf on the tree is made of brass, and as you can see, has an inscription of a baby's name, a date of birth, and a short message. And we put the leaves on the tree every 6 months, so during Baby Loss Awareness Week in October, and then again in April, which is spring, new hope, but also the anniversary of the tree. And all of the families that I care for are invited to have a leaf on the tree. It's in the local park. We have CCTV monitoring it, and the families can just go, it's open access, and they can go and sit down. There's a couple of benches there and have some quiet time and just remember their baby, but also knowing with all the other leaves on the tree, sadly, that they are not alone, that there are local families in the same similar situation. So our baby bereavement support group has been functioning for many years, and we have raised lots of money. We've bought equipment for the hospital. We have lots of events, and we're going from strength to strength. And we're raising awareness all the time for the National Bereavement Care Pathway to provide better resources around the country so there's no postcode lottery. I hope you've enjoyed my talk today, and please do get in touch if I can help in any way. Thank you.